We ask also, if you have not already, please take a moment and quiet or turn off cell phones or noise-making devices. We would appreciate it very much. O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast and our eternal home. We pause before you on this glorious day to give you thanks and to offer our thanks to all the men and women who have served faithfully and honorably in our military services during times of war and peace. We acknowledge, O Lord, that there are many who served and did not attain the status to be called veterans. And also there are many whose lives changed forever by experiences or the injuries of combat. For these we say thanks and ask your continued comfort and peace. Look graciously upon us all, O God of every nation. May our leaders in all facets be led by your wisdom. Give us your light and your truth that we may be led by them. Guard the brave men and women currently in the military service. Though for a season they must be people of war, let them live for peace, being as eager for agreement as for victory. Encourage them as they encourage one another. May fears and uncertainties be transformed into quiet confidence. Give us a heart to love and to serve you. Enable us to show our thankfulness by giving ourselves to your service, remembering that all we are and that all that we have is a trust from you. Hear our prayer. O Lord, hear our prayer. Amen. Thank you. You may be seated.
It is my pleasure to welcome you to this special and somber day. I'm especially grateful for the presence of alumni, parents, faculty, staff, the senior class, and for the other upper school students who are joining us by WATV. This occasion is very appropriate for Woodward Academy, not just because it's located in the United States, and because we give thanks for and celebrate the accomplishments of those who have given their lives and their time in service to our country, but in part because Woodward's founding was born out of a profound commitment to serve our country as Georgia Military Academy. Its sole purpose was intended to instill education and character in young men who would go on to serve our country in the armed forces. That mission changed radically for Georgia Military Academy in the mid-1960s, as it did for many military schools, which ultimately became college preparatory institutions. But not lost in that change was Woodward's long-standing commitment to the values and principles on which it was founded: excellence, character, and opportunity. A desire to instill in all of us those principles of character that will make us effective and contributing citizens in this great democracy. Fortunately, over the years, even since the mid-1960s, there have been a number of men and women inspired to go on from this place to serve our country. If you will look in your program, for example, on the second page, you will find a list of alumni who are currently serving in the military today. Inadvertently left off of this list is Nolan Bell, class of 1982, who we are proud to have with us today. I want to say a word of thanks to Sandy Adamek and others who work with her through our Woodward Cares program that remembers and responds to and cares for those of the Woodward family who are currently serving in the military. One notable Woodward graduate who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country is Tyler Brown, class of 1996. His name should be familiar to all upper school students, for the Student Center is named in his memory. Tyler was a bright and engaging student at Woodward Academy. He received many accolades during his time here for his hard work and commitment and passion. He was president of his senior class. He left here to go to Georgia Institute of Technology, and at Georgia Tech in his senior year was president of the student body, following in the footsteps of his father, who was president of the student body at Georgia Tech, the only father-son duo in Georgia Tech's history to have been presidents of the SGA there. Tyler was inspired enough by his family, his Woodward experience, his Georgia Tech experience, that he committed his life to serve his country and gave of himself and his life in 2004, dying in combat in Iraq. In addition to the naming of the Student Center in his memory, this occasion today has an endowment that bears his name that brings to the campus individuals who speak to us and remind us of the importance of this occasion. I am deeply grateful to the members of Tyler's family and other friends who have supported the institution to make such a series like this possible, and to Tyler's family who are with us today. Our speaker today is Major Daniel Gade. Major Gade is connected to Woodward in several respects. Most important for this occasion is that Major Gade was Tyler's commanding officer while Tyler served in Iraq. Major Gade has also demonstrated great wisdom in choosing a spouse who is a Woodward graduate, who graduated from here in 1993, Wendy Williams. You will find in your program a description of Major Gade's considerable accomplishments. He attended the University of Georgia, where he earned a master's and PhD degree. He serves as an instructor for the Department of Social Sciences at West Point. He has served in a number of staff and commanding positions in Colorado, Washington, D.C., South Korea, and Iraq. And he has received numerous awards and decorations for his service to our country. Among them include the Presidential Service Badge, Bronze Star, 2 Purple Hearts, the Meritorious Service Medal, the Army Commendation Medal for Valor, the Army Achievement Medal, Combat Action Badge, Ranger Tab, and both airborne and air assault badges. A remarkable record. He remains on active duty even to this day toward our U.S. Army, despite the fact that he lost a leg in combat in 2005. Major, we are so very proud of your accomplishments, for your commitment to our country, for your service, and for your willingness to join us here today on this special occasion. And I invite this audience to join me in expressing our gratitude for your presence here.
You're embarrassing me. I think that I was hoping to end that way instead of starting that way. You're putting the pressure on me. In addition to what Dr. Gully said about my deep and now rather long-standing ties to this lovely, wonderful institution, I'll add this. The reason I'm standing here today, of course, is because of Tyler and because of my connection to Woodward through Tyler. But the reason I'm standing here literally today is because of Tyler as well. You see, the surgeons that treated him when he was critically wounded on the battlefield on September 14th, 2004, the very same surgeons who treated him treated me 4 months later. And the lessons they learned from his case, they applied to mine. And so the reason I'm standing here today literally is because of Tyler's sacrifice. Today, I'm going to offer a challenge to you. And the challenge is this. Of course we celebrate veterans on Veterans Day. Of course we say to veterans, thank you for your service. But what I want you to do, students, what I want you to do today is begin to live your life in such a way that a veteran can come to you and say thank you for your service. You see, we don't honor veterans because of how they fought. We don't honor them because of their fighting in World War II, on beaches, on the Normandy beaches, with names like Sword and Juno and Gold. We don't honor them because of how they fought there. We don't honor them for how they fought in the freezing cold of the Battle of the Bulge. We don't honor them for how they fought in the South Pacific, on islands like Okinawa and Iwo Jima and Peleliu. That's not why we honor them. And we don't honor them for how they fought in the Korean War, for the incredibly brave stand they made at the Pusan perimeter, and the breakout from Pusan all the way north to the border with China. And we don't honor them for their stand at the Chosin Reservoir, when the temperature dropped to nearly 30 below zero in some cases. And some Marines and soldiers who were wounded were saved by the fact that their blood literally froze in their bodies. Instead of allowing them to bleed to death, the blood would freeze in their wounds and keep them alive long enough to get to the aid station. We don't honor them for how they fought there. We don't honor them for how they fought in Vietnam. Many of them draftees, all of them fighting in a place that they had never heard of before the early 1960s. It wasn't even really on the map. And yet these men were willing to go there and do something incredibly, incredibly courageous. Like the men who fought in May of 1969 on a place called Hill 972. For a week they fought to take this hill. Nearly 200 men were killed and many more wounded in action as they fought to take this hill. And when they got to the top, somebody with maybe perhaps a grisly sense of humor had placed a little sign on top of the hill. And they named it Hamburger Hill. Because the men who went up there, many of them ended up very severely wounded, and they considered it a meat grinder, and so they named it Hamburger Hill. But we don't honor them for how they fought there. The fact that the next day after they seized that hill, the fact that they were ordered to turn around and march off it and give it back to the enemy is a fact that's sort of lost to history, and it's too bad. But we don't honor them for how they fought there. We don't honor them for how they fought in the skies over Vietnam, bravely risking life and limb, and many of them being shot down and captured, and spending year after year after year in the Hanoi Hilton and in other prison camps across North Vietnam. and a few actually in South Vietnam as well. But we don't honor them for how they fought in the skies over Vietnam. And we don't honor them because of their fighting in the Gulf War, when nearly 500,000 American men and women, all volunteers, decided that they would come together in a moment of need that our nation had. They answered the call and they went to Saudi Arabia and they attacked into Kuwait and into the southern part of Iraq, believing at the beginning that they would be subjected to chemical weapons during the attack. And yet they attacked anyway, despite the choking fear that comes with that kind of threat. But we don't honor them for how they fought. And we don't honor them for how they fought and fight today in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. Forgotten words like Samarra and Ramadi and Fallujah and Baghdad and Paktika province and the Kunar Valley. Those are just words to us. But yet American men and women are fighting bravely there every day, laying down life, laying down limb, fighting in these places that are marked in our language by just words. No, we don't honor them for how they fought. Instead, we honor them for what they fought for. They fought for other words. Words like liberty. Words like, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Words like, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Words like, no man shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property except by due process of law. All of those are just words too. And we honor veterans not because of how they fought, because of what they fought for. That's why we honor veterans on a day like Veterans Day. And so today, I want to take a moment for all of the veterans in this room to stand up and be honored for what you fought for. Thank you very much for your service. Unfortunately, some veterans are not here anymore. They've died of old age. We're losing about 400 World War II veterans every day. A few years ago, we were losing about 1,000 a day. And the only reason we're only losing 400 now is because most of them have passed on. A national treasure is being lost on a day-to-day basis. So many of those men are no longer with us. We can't hear their stories. There are no living World War I veterans anymore. And many of the young men and women who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam are marked not by their accomplishments in life, but by words on a monument. Men like Tyler Brown, who was a friend of mine for a brief period of time, and one of the great regrets of my life is that it wasn't a longer time. Because Tyler Brown was a man who rose to the challenge that I'm going to issue to you today. And the challenge is, I think you ought to challenge yourself to live in such a way that a veteran can come to you and say, thank you for your service. You see, before Tyler was ever a veteran, before he was a combat veteran, and before he was killed in action serving in Iraq, Tyler was the kind of man who any one of us would have walked up to had we known him and said, thank you for your service. And here's how he served. He served by leading himself and by being a person of great character. Let me talk about each one of those in turn. Every leadership author, virtually every leadership author, out of the thousands and thousands of books on leadership, every single one of them will tell you the same thing. Chapter 1, lead yourself first. You must lead yourself first. For Tyler, and for many of you, that means you're leading yourself in the areas of moral conduct. You're doing the right thing instead of the wrong thing, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. In the area of physical fitness, you're out there and you're making yourself the very best person you can be physically, because you know that a strong body will carry your mind a long, long way. You're developing yourself educationally. You're working so hard and you're studying and you're making yourself the very best that you can be in the area. You're leading yourself in terms of your educational achievement. And many of you serve in capacities that could be called spiritual development. You're leaders in your youth groups. You're serving in your churches and your synagogues and perhaps your mosques. You are young men and women who have dedicated yourself to something greater than yourself. And so you're developing yourself, you're leading yourself in terms of your spiritual conduct. And for that, I applaud you. That's the beginning of self-leadership. Because when you blend together the spiritual, physical, moral, and emotional strands of your development into one whole, that's something that we call integrity. And integrity is the very first step in self-leadership. Self-leadership means, as the cadet prayer says at West Point, doing the hard right thing instead of the easy wrong thing. Choosing the harder right over the easy wrong again and again and again. And that's what you young men and women have an opportunity to do here today and every day for the rest of your lives. You see, the Bible says, to whom much is given, much is expected. I think that's in the Bible. I hope it is. To whom much is given, much is expected. If it's not, it should be, right? And to you, much, much is given. You're one of 330 million Americans. Out of the 7 billion people on earth, you're already in the top 5%. By being somebody who woke up in a dry home this morning, you're in another small percent. And the fact that your parents put warm food on the table and you got to eat as much of it as you wanted puts you in another tiny percent. And then the fact that you get to come to some place like Woodward Academy, where the teachers are motivated professionals, where they're pouring their lives into you every single day, that puts you in a tiny, tiny fraction of humanity. But to whom much is given, much is expected. And much has been given to you. So today, if you haven't already, today is the time when you start to develop yourself by doing the hard right thing instead of the easy wrong thing, by leading yourself every day. The second thing I'll talk about is character. By leading yourself every day, it's the same thing as going to the gym and lifting weights every day. The first time you go in, you can only lift 25 pounds. By the end of the first year, you can lift 200 pounds. It's because you've spent all that time making the hard right choice to go to the gym and developing yourself physically. But by doing the hard right thing instead of the easy wrong thing, again and again, by exercising self-leadership, what you're doing is developing yourself, developing your character. And character matters. Character matters when hard things in life happen. When parents get divorced, when children die, when you experience tragedy, character matters. As a matter of fact, when you experience tragedy, the only thing that you have to get you through that time of tragedy is the character that you develop up to that point. That's it. When you wake up on your back in the ditch, as I did on January 10, 2005, critically wounded, horribly wounded, mangled. When life deals you a hand that is unpleasant or that is downright evil and nasty, the only thing you have to get through that period of adversity is the character that you've developed up to that point. It's too late to develop any more. When you step up to the line in your cross-country meet, all the running you did before is all you've got to get you through that race. When the ball is about to be snapped tonight in your playoff game, which I'm super excited about, get them. So when you step up to the line, guess what, guys? You can't go out after this and practice. It's too late. And the same thing is true of adversity. When adversity strikes, which it always will, the only thing you have to get you through that time is the character that you've developed now and up to that point. That's the time that you have to do that. I want you to step back from your own situation just for a second. And I want you to imagine a country where everybody is doing the hard right thing instead of the easy wrong thing. Imagine. How many homeless people would we have? Virtually none. How many illegitimate children would be born? Virtually none. How much poverty would we have? Virtually none. How much would the suffering and horror that sometimes strikes people in America, how much would that be diminished? And how much greater would our country be? How much greater would our country be if we were helping each other and doing the right thing always, and instead of seeking our own gratification, our own self-interest, instead we were seeking the betterment of those around us? Imagine how much greater America could be. So you see, if you develop your character now, and you begin to do the hard right thing instead of the easy wrong thing, again and again and again, through your life, it's not just you that benefits. It's not just your family. It's not just your neighborhood. It's not just the state of Georgia. Your entire country benefits when you do the hard right thing instead of the easy wrong thing. When a veteran walks up to you and says, "Thank you for your service because of how you served," it's because the country that he was willing to bleed and die for, whether or not bleeding and dying was asked of him, the country that he was willing to do that for, is better because of your service. So, look to the example, if you have time, and you look at some of the plaques and some of the commemorations that are around here, just think about Tyler for a second. Tyler was somebody who always sought the harder right instead of the easier wrong. When he was offered a chance while we were in Korea serving together, he was offered a chance to go to D.C. and serve in the 3rd United States Infantry, the Old Guard, where he would have been a ceremonial guard and not subject to any danger at all. But yet he was already a platoon leader of these 33, 34 young men who he knew would eventually be facing combat. And instead of going to the Old Guard, to serve in the Old Guard in a position of safety, Tyler chose to do the hard right thing instead of the easy wrong thing. And he said to his bosses at the time, he said, "I will go with my men to Iraq." And for Tyler, that was just an example of the kind of hard right choice he made again and again. But this particular hard right choice cost him everything. It cost him everything. He laid down his life on the altar of freedom. But he did so willingly because he was a man who had again and again through his life chosen the harder right thing instead of the easier wrong thing. And at the penultimate moment, at the final moment, he did the same thing he'd always done and laid down his life for his country. Did the hard right thing instead of the easy wrong thing. So for you today, the call to action for you today is if you're going to live your life in such a way that a veteran can say thank you to you, that means a couple of things. It means today you start if you've been making wrong choices, that's fine. We all make wrong choices. Now start to make right choices. It means if you've been slacking off in one of those areas of development, stop doing it. Start doing the right thing. Because today is the first day of the rest of your life. And I would love to see each and every one of you live your life in such a way that a veteran, on Veterans Day, comes to you and says, "Thank you for your service." Thank you for having me today.
World War I, Robert Richmond Forrester, Eldon F. Brewster, Howard Candler Curtis, Fred Smith, James Reed Welch, Beverly D. Evans, Jr., Wilbur Oglesby, William Thomas Mackinson, James W. Powell, Jesse Hamlin.
World War II. Richard P. Aldridge, class of 1934. Fred Lee Allen, 1932. Young Ben Barber, 1936. Jerry Herbert Bass, 1938. Stephen Allen Baskett, Jr., 1941. Robert Bradford Bickerstaff, 1938. Martin Rogers Biggers, 1938. Bertz H. Boulware, 1933. Thomas W. Bradham, 1937. Benjamin Arthur Brew, 1939. Jesse Lafayette Carroll, Jr., 1938. Joel W. Clayton, Jr., 1941. Gordon Stanley Cochran, Jr., 1943. Donald Jordan Coffin, 1944.
Allen Dilworth Cooksey, class of 1940. Maxwell M. Corpenine, Jr., 1937. William I. Cozens, Jr., 1932. Henry Dewey Crow, Jr., class of 1939. Arthur Collins Cundy, Jr., 1942. William A. Davis, 1933. Howard E. Denham, Jr., 1938. John Allen Edson, 1933. Oscar Herman Finkbeiner, 1940. Kendall King Fish, 1940. Joseph Henry Fleming III, 1935. James Dixon Ford, 1939. Frank F. Frazier, 1934. Warren William Gates, Jr., 1938. Samuel Alexander Gibson, Jr., 1937.
Ralph Cleveland Glanton, class of 1932. Ralph Haas, 1931. Orla F. Hall, 1942. Carol Jack Harless, 1941. George W. Hendricks, Jr., 1939. Samuel Murray Henry, 1943. James Culpeper Hill, Jr., 1941. Richard F. Hill, 1932. Wood Guise York, 1931. Samuel D. Johnson, Jr., 1940. William Thomas Johnson, 1939. Jerome B. Jordan, Jr., 1938. Kenneth Charles Kerr, Jr., 1939. Cardell Kleckner, 1933.
John Robert Leeser, class of 1940. John Herbert Lightsley, Jr., 1938. Warren J. Mace, 1943. William Lecky Maddox, 1909. Arnold William McCurr, 1942. Reginald Hayman Miller, 1940. James G. Moody, 1943. Clinton Warner Mornenweg, 1936. William H. Morris, 1940. William A. Mulvoy, 1937. Merle Wilson Murphy, 1942. Joseph J. Northcutt, 1943. Daniel Maurice O'Donnell, 1940. Frank R. Oliver, Jr., 1927.
Claude D. Powell, class of 1941. Frank Leroy Rash, Jr., 1941. Thomas A. Ratchford, Jr., 1930. John Edwin Rice, Jr., 1938. Don Roderick Ricardis, Jr., 1943. Henry W. Robinson, Jr., 1944. Herbert Herschel Roth, 1941. William Ross Scott, Jr., 1935. James Silver V, 1942. William Ross Singletary, 1934. Chester C. Smith, Jr., 1936. Homer Lee Smith, 1941. Ray B. Smith, 1919. Jack Warren Spencer, 1942. Robert Neil Springfield, Jr., 1940. Robert Louis Stevenson, 1932.
Richard Ackwen Tharp, 1927. Henry Ellison Thompson, 1936. Loney Robert Turner, 1943. Stuyvesant Van Buren, 1939. William Albert Warner, Jr., 1934. William S. Whitaker, Jr., 1938. Howard L. Willikins, Jr., 1941. Carlton T. Williford, Jr., 1943. William Richard Wynn, Jr., 1937. William Stephen Young, 1936. Korean War. A.D. McLean, class of 1926. C.H. Olshig, Jr., 1935. G.M. Cordes, 1946. J.R. Wasson, 1946. F.F. Dees, 1947. R.J. Nikora, 1948. J.S. Bramblett, 1950.
Vietnam War. John W. Williams, class of 1937. Douglas Woodward, 1944. James Carl Wise, Jr., 1945. Cullen George Starnes, Jr., 1947. Joseph Adrian Bishop, 1953. James Charles Sheriff, Jr., 1954. Stephen W. Pless, 1957. William Lee Buchanan, 1958. William Carroll Elrod, Jr., 1958. Ronald W. Ringwald, 1958. William A. Branch, 1959. Major David J. Rickle, 1960. Clement Olin Stevenson, Jr., 1960. Thomas G. Funk, 1961. Charles R. Wyatt, 1962. Robert Michael Moore, 1968. Military conflicts since 1973. Lieutenant Tyler Hall Brown, class of 1996. We are grateful for these alumni and their sacrifices.
You have heard the reading of over 100 names of GMA Woodward alumni who have given the ultimate sacrifice for their country and for each of us. In commemoration of their sacrifice and to express our gratitude, we are now going to process to the bull ring, where wreaths will be placed at each of the monuments that are located there. As the colors are retired, we will go in a procession that I ask that you do so in a respectful, solemn, silent manner, reflecting on the importance of this occasion and of what you might do to assure that a veteran thanks you. Please stand for the retiring of the colors.
for the